All right, for 45 days, the world's largest spiritual gathering unfolded in Prayagraj, an event so massive, it didn't just draw crowds, it shaped economies, it tested infrastructure capabilities and pushed the limits of security and surveillance. The MahaKumbh2025 was a spiritual reminder, a technological experiment and an economic powerhouse for all those things. In fact, it was all of that rolled into one. Over 65 crore devotees, more than the population of most countries, gathered for a dip in the holy confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and the Saraswati. Key days like the Moni Amavasya alone saw over 8 crore pilgrims, making it one of the highest single-day turnouts ever recorded at any event across the globe. But it wasn't just faith that ran deep, right? The numbers tell a story of unprecedented scale as well, on so many different ways.
Now, there's obviously the boost to the economy that we've talked a lot about right here on the show. So 3 lakh crore that was spent to a security force of 50,000 cops, 2,700 AI-powered cameras, 113 underwater drones scanning the waters. It operated like a high-tech fortress. But what did it actually mean for people on the ground? We're going to take a look at in just a second from now. The 10th city alone used 100 kilometers of fabric, 68 lakh wooden poles, a setup that was supposed to be so vast that you could actually wrap it around the Earth's circumference half a time over. More than 350 special trains, a 7-tier security system, fire safety stations, control rooms, watchtowers, a social media monitoring system 24/7. It all sounds very impressive. How was it on the ground for those who attended? What was it like to attend again and again and again in those 45 days? We're going to get to know that and more, because at the heart of all of this was a simple act. Millions of people stepping into the waters, believing in something larger than themselves. This morning, we're going to break it all down, the staggering figures as we just walked you through, the security behemoth, the economic impact, and what this means for the future of all of these mega gatherings. All right, to discuss this in a lot more depth, we have with us 2 different people on the show today. First, returning to us once again, we have Nick Booker. He's also known as Indogenius. He's a well-known historian, and his videos on this entire Mela have been going viral again and again. We've had him on, we've talked about it. We'll come to you in just a second. We also have with us Ami Ganatra. She's with us. She's an author. Ami, we've also seen so many of your videos around this, explaining the significance of the MahaKumbh to audiences on the internet, audiences in the MahaKumbh itself. So we'll come to you in a second too. Let's go to Nick first though, just to understand a little bit more. Nick, again, as we were just telling our audiences, you're someone who we've had on the show before. You also visited the MahaKumbh 3 different times. You were there for, I think, 15 days, which of the total amount of time means you were there 1 in every 3 days. That's a lot of time spent in MahaKumbh. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to be there 3 different times, and if you felt changes in the sort of the spiritual vibe in the space over those 3 visits.
Namaskar Toyaji, Namaskar Sonaji.
Namaskar.
Good morning. Wonderful
morning.
to be back with you. Yes, I mean, sadly, I wasn't at Kumbh or Kashi yesterday for Shivratri, Mahashivratri, but I was fortunate enough to spend, as you say, about 15 days, 3 visits, 6 Sangam Snans. And of course, the energy changes. So when we talk about energy, obviously, many people talk about spiritual energy, but just physically, there was a pulsation and a change. You have the solar cycle, so it was cold. I mean, when we begin this in Makar Sankranti, Posh Purnama, we couldn't even see the moon or the sun. It was that cloudy. And now it's beautiful sunshine, blue skies. The water's warmer, everything is very, very different. Spring is in the air. So you have that seasonal change, but then also there are the crowds. So in terms of the number of devotees of Tirthyatris attending, that pulsates as well. So there were a lot at the beginning, then it comes down and it goes right. So it swells and rises. What was interesting is at certain times, because people were thinking that on the main Snan, the Shahi Amrit Snan days, there would be a lot of people. Actually, that meant that on some of the days in between, there were more people because everyone was thinking, well, everyone's going on that day, so we'll go on this day.
Let me squeeze in,
So there was a rhythm to Kumbh, which was driven by the lunar cycle. First of all, that Posh Purnima and Makar Sankranti morning, and then, of course, Mauni Amavasya, where the crowds swelled beyond belief. I mean, you had to be there, traveling around as we did by foot, by motorbike, in order to going through the city, taking the trains out of Prayagraj Junction, going to the Sangam, in order to appreciate just how many more people there were that weekend, that Mauni Amavasya week, those days, than there were on other days, including even the beginning, Maghi Purnima, Shivratri. It was a lot more people in those few days.
So you're saying that there has been a pattern to how Kumbh, there has not been one way to actually describe it, but think
Impossible.
about if there was one. I know Ami is also waiting. Ami, I just want to get like a big picture here. You know, Kumbh has been around for so long. I grew up in UP, not very far from Allahabad. It used to be Allahabad back then. In fact, my grandmother's there, so I used to visit very often. So I've seen constantly, like every year or every 4 years at least, this entire sort of Kumbh coming up. But never before has the excitement been this much. Never before have brands put in so much of themselves. Never before have younger people gone to Kumbh in the amount they have. What changed this year? What was different?
So Namaste, Suprabhatam to all of you. This was actually my third Kumbh. My first was in 2013. After that, I went for the Ardha Kumbh in 2019 and then this one. And yes, you are very right. This time, the excitement around Kumbh has been phenomenal. One of the things is the way it has been told that this is once in 144 years. This is one of those MahaKumbh. So of course that created a lot of hype around it. But the other thing, as I see, Sonal, is also that the accessibility has become so much easier to Prayag now, right? 2013 when I was there were no flights to Prayag. Kashi had maybe 1 or 2 flights. There were no trains. So I think a lot of credit for this also goes to the government. Because they made it possible for people to be able to go there. People always wanted to go. People knew of Kumbh. So one, it made accessibility was much easier. Second, I think social media definitely helped. All the marketing that happened around Kumbh. And also the fact that as Kumbh started, you saw lots of celebrities go, right?
Yeah.
You saw actors go, you saw politicians go. You saw everything live. And that created even more excitement. I think all the news channels, portals, they were all just over there. And even if you go to Sangam, you find these vans of all the media houses over there, right? So I think you have also played a big role in making Kumbh cool for the younger generation. And Instagram, of course, there were reels starting from day one, right? The reels, people talking about how much fun they are having, what is the experience they are going through, the kind of Shraddha you've seen in action. This was there. This was always there for Kumbh. But now that everybody was seeing it, there was almost like what we call FOMO, the fear of missing out. And so when people thought that actually after Mauni Amavasya or maybe after Maghi Purnima, the crowds will come down, but that did not happen. I know my own friends and relatives who would have never ventured in any place close to that kind of crowds. All of them have gone because nobody wanted to miss out. I think all these factors have really helped.
So it was a FOMO Kumbh, a cool Kumbh, meant for so many more people. Nick has a point to make, but Toy has a question.
There's always been a FOMO to Kumbh, if we're going to use that. If you read the Prayag Mahatmyas, people have been for centuries. If you read the Puranas for millennia, Mahabharata, Ramayana, always people have been talking about Maghe Prayage. When it's the month of Magh, you go to Prayag to take this, unlike any other form of worship anywhere in the world, this combination of sun, moon,
I think you're
waters,
right. It's
rivers.
always existed, but never before have we seen a talk being made about the Kumbh economics or how things are building up. If Blinkit is saying that I'm going to deliver in 10 minutes at Kumbh, if banks are saying we are going to run ATM vans across Kumbh so you can go hop in, withdraw cash and come out.
I feel like you see it as a metaphor.
The sadhus and the akaras for centuries have been saying come to Kumbh to trade. The trading, the akaras are spiritual, but also there's a trading element, there's business, there's property, that goes back centuries. On the Dakshina part, it's on the highways, it's on the waterways, Prayag is a trading center, it's a political center, but beneath all of that it is a spiritual center.
So can I ask you, Nick, because both you and Ami are actually historians, we're going to take advantage of that today, and we're going to ask you a little bit more here about the history. Walk us through the ways in which MahaKumbh has been documented when it was happening in history. Tell us what that's looked like, and then tell us, you're someone who's immensely popular on social media. How did you feel the modes of storytelling changed this time, now that we could document it in the immediate?
That is a great question. So if you look at the Ashokan pillar, which may not be Ashokan, and it's said to have been in Kaushambi, but it may not have been in Kaushambi. So it's in Akbar's fort, in the fort at Allahabad, at the Sangam. And on it are inscriptions, which are kind of like where people have paid some money to write their name. So you have the big ones of Ashoka, Samudragupta, Jahangir. But you also have names of pilgrims, of Tirthyatris, who've had their name inscribed and a date. And the date is always Magh, the month of Magh. So we know that people have been coming to Magh and leaving their name. So that's the earliest kind of physical epigraphic evidence on the site that people have been coming in this month for a long time. But if you read in the Puranas, in the Prayagraj, my favorite one of all is a queen from Mithila, so northern Bihar. There was a queen, Vishvesa Devi, which means the goddess of the universe. She ruled for 12 years. So she was a really powerful female ruler of India that many people may have forgotten. And she compiled the Ganga Vakya Avali, which is this collection of statements that she's a scholar and a poetess. So she's collected all the statements from the Puranas, from the Itihasa, about the importance of Ma Ganga, about the rituals, Turpan, about Mundan, shaving heads, offering ablution, offering waters into the milk. All of these pinned down, all of these beautifully described, and the importance of Prayag and coming to Prayag. Then you have Chinese pilgrims, foreigner pilgrims, Faxian, Shanzang in the 7th century, Mark Twain, the Americans. I mean, people have been documenting their experience for millennia.
Can I then marry the conversation so far? There's history of Kumbh, and then there is how Kumbh was this time around and how it's been documented. If I were to ask you guys about these viral moments that have come out from Kumbh, can you give me your top pick on which one was the best? Can I go with mine first, because I don't want anybody taking it. I think the guys doing the digital Snan of taking pictures and charging money to give those digital pictures Snan in the Kumbh was an absolute delight. I think that was for me the best viral moment. But Ami first, then I'll go to Nick.
So there have been a lot of these moments which you are also right now, as we talk, you're putting it on the screen, right? Though the one which I absolutely love is seeing the Mahamandaleshwars of different akhadas literally play in the water during the Shahi Snan, right? They're playing, and there are, I think, Amit Shah, and they're throwing water at each other. They are literally playing in the water. I think that was one of the best clips for me, because it showed me what Ganga does to us. We call Ganga Maiya, right? She's our mother. And that clip shows what Ganga Maiya, that mother, can do all of us. She makes all of us her kids. So for me, that was the best clip that I have seen.
Oh, yeah, brought in the child in you, Nick?
Yes, there is a real leela, real playfulness about the Snan from the sadhu's perspective as well as Tirthyatris. Different Snans had different effects on me. So some were much more serious and much more intense, and others were much more playful and fun. I like the lady who was dipping her husband on a video call into Snan. And she was,
on the phone.
And having been with my sister-in-law was with us, and she actually dropped her phone in the Sangam. And I had to dive down and find in the sand and retrieved it, and it's working. But
what are you saying?
She also did an accidental phone Snan.
We'll talk about which brand the phone was later
I was
after the
going to
broadcast.
say, did you know of the
Made in India.
the Mumbai society that took water from the MahaKumbh and poured it into their pool? So that the entire pool had MahaKumbh water.
Yes, and I brought back 10 litres of Ganga Jal from the Sangam. I should tell you this. So we went out in the morning. One of the reasons why I did 6 instead of 5 snans is I went out in the morning on a boat. I collected 5 litres of Ganga Jal from the Sangam on Maghi Purnima. I then came back. I then got off the boat and I left the Ganga Jal behind. And a policeman said, "Don't worry, you know, you can get it from anywhere. It's all Ganga Jal." And I was like, "No, but I wanted to."
That particular.
So I went back to the ashram I was staying in for a few hours, and then I thought, I've got to go back. So I then went back again that day, in the middle of the day, and got 10 litres, and then carried it back along with, as everyone does.
And you have your
And
bottles.
I've been distributing it to friends, family, neighbours.
How sweet.
Wait,
How
let's
nice,
ask, Ami, I want to ask you. Sorry, go ahead.
If I can add one more thing to that, if you walked around in the Kumbh Kshetra, right? One of the things you would come across very often, like every 10-15 meters, if I may say, were people selling those empty white cans of different sizes, so that people could carry back the Ganga Jal. You would see them everywhere. I think it was one of the most sold items in the Kumbh Kshetra.
For sure.
Yeah, true.
Tell us, Ami, also, you're someone who, you were recording, I saw some videos even from within the Kumbh, where you were, talking to other people at the Kumbh about the history of Kumbh. I want to ask you, when you were talking to people around you, how deep was their knowledge of the mythology, the story behind Kumbh?
If you talk to local people, like common people who come there, I think a lot of them know about the Pauranic story, where we have heard about the Samudra Manthan and then the fight between the Devatas and the Asuras, where the Devatas are running away with the pot of Amrit, and the Amrit falls in 4 places, Prayag being one of them, where the Kumbh happens. I think that story a lot of people know. But the history which Nick was talking about, or the documentation of the Chinese travelers, where we hear about Harshavardhan, Raja Harshavardhan, holding such mela where dharma sabhas are happening, that very few people knew. Also the history of Naga sadhus, of the akhadas, that very few people knew as such, but they were all very curious. So the curiosity has definitely increased, and people are talking about all these things now, which was not happening before. So I'm hoping that by and large, the knowledge will increase now, which was definitely not the case was not the case when I was talking to people.
Okay.
Is this the first time we're seeing movie promotions in Kumbh the way we did this time?
Yeah.
Where we had that, I feel like speaks to the virality.
Kumbh, somebody called it the Super Bowl of India. Like, move aside IPL, Kumbh is here, and this is the place where brands will advertise and do everything.
Except
but
that the intention of
See,
the
everybody
people there
needs
is
eyeballs,
completely
right?
different.
And Kumbh, very good, you get 64 eyeballs overall. So it was the place to be.
Yeah, the Kumbh economics, we did a separate episode on all of that. So this is a good cue for everybody watching, that if you want to know more about these things, fascinating, you can go back to YouTube and watch that. But as we draw this to a close, I want to ask both of you this. When you go to a place like this, where there are so many people, I'm sure you meet this one person or have this one experience that gives you that light bulb moment, that little aha that happens, and you say, oh my God, this is something that I will go back with. Could you share with us one individual story that really touched your heart? I'll start with Nick. One story, Nick. I know you have several. I want one.
Too many stories. I mean, spending a night on the Sangam nose, and talking to.
Maybe have your kind attention, please. This is the big.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, spending a night on the Sangam nose, spending a night in the Akaras, talking with the Naga Babas, in the ashram. I mean, I can't possibly think of one beyond many.
Okay, Nick will write a full book on it, and
Yes,
we'll talk about that later. Ami, one incident, one person,
Again,
one experience.
I agree with Nick, it's very difficult to pull out one. But I remember talking to a Naga sadhu in one of the akhadas, and I have always been very curious at what is it that takes one down this path of becoming a Naga. It is not at all an easy life, right? One is to say, yes, tyag do, sannyasi ban jao is one thing, but to go down this path of becoming a Naga is extremely difficult. So, when I asked him, his answer was, लोग इतने सारे साल भगवा कपड़े पहन के फिर भी नागा नहीं बन सकते. नागा होना प्रारब्ध की बात है. जब शिव बुलाता है हम आ जाते हैं. And this answer, I got from another lady Naga sadhu. I was like, ma'am, how is it that आप नागा बन रहे? And she said, बेटा आपके जैसे 4 मेरे बच्चे हैं ये तो सब प्रारब्ध है, प्रारब्ध ही है जो यहाँ लाता है, प्रारब्ध ही है जो सबको मिलवाता है. So that for me was a down out of everything. That it is indeed prarabdha that we all have become a part of this phenomenal called Kumbh Mela, the MahaKumbh that has happened this year.
That's a beautiful answer. Nick, can we ask you, we'll come back to you for a second just to ask you, and yeah, maybe we will actually leave it on this, but we do want to ask, tell us a little bit about the spiritual here. So there's going to be another MahaKumbh in some years from now, there'll be another Kumbh some years from now. What will you do differently when you visit Kumbh the next time from how you did it this time? How will your journey be different? And spiritually, what do you think you'll be looking for then?
I would definitely like to spend much longer. I mean, ideally, I'd like to do, my dream would be to do Kalp fast, 30 days with my wife, sleeping on the straw. I'm not sure that's going to happen. But I think we should at least do a period of that. So I think that, I mean, so, okay, I'm not waiting 12 years. This MahaKumbh Mela happens every year. I will be back in Prayagraj in January 2026. And then obviously going on to Ujjain and Nasik. But every year Prayagraj has a mini version of this. People do not need to wait for 12 years. Ma Ganga, Ma Yamuna and Ma Saraswati will come together every year at the same time under those heavens. It's only the position of Brihaspati that is in a 12-year cycle. Everything else is available. And you know, on a symbolic level, one is able to kind of come back to that moment at any time, and that is obviously the sadhana of the sadhus, that they are able to experience the divine or experience a level of consciousness that is available to all of us, even sitting right here in this studio.
Is your wife equally keen? Your kids, did you take them?
Yes. My wife, she came, and so did our 9-year-old daughter, and she made a promise to her friend that they would come back in 12 years. Yeah. Very powerful.
So many things. We've interviewed in the past 45 days several artists who went and remember Sounds of Kumbh we spoke about last time when you were here? They've actually done that. They've made a full album based only on the sounds that they picked up from there and music that inspired and came in. Brands, stories, documentation, viral videos. This has been, like I said, an event like no other. And FOMO, I think that's one word we can all agree upon, is where we can, you know, very easily say is what. And that picture is real. Yeah. This picture does tell, you know, the full story of Kumbh on how deep the faith goes in and what the FOMO was really all about. Thank you both for joining us and sharing your experiences. It's been lovely to sort of get a glimpse of that.
Thank you, Sona. Thank you.
Thanks, Ami.